Welcome to this edition of Lion Pride Sports. I'm Andrew Rogers, joined alongside Coach Francis of the women's basketball team. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
And Coach, I just want to get right in and delve right into your coaching career. Growing up, did you always think you were going to end up in the basketball world?
Absolutely not. When I grew up, I was, as you can tell by the accent, I raised livestock. You know, early on I thought farming was going to be my future, and then when I decided I didn't want to be out in the cold weather such as we have today, I got into the architecture and engineering side of things, and that was my main passion. You know, I wanted to go into architecture, engineering, and you know, I was going to be something big someday in that area. But I had a couple high school coaches that I still remain in contact with that made such a huge impact in my life. We were not, all the teams I played on in high school, we weren't very good. But they made such a huge impact, and I saw the difference they made not only in my life but other people's life. And it's like, I love sports. I wanted to make an impact, so I felt I could, you know, do a lot better job of helping others as a coach than I would as an architect.
So you talk about wanting to go right into architecture and not even having a basketball mindset at all. How did you get your first job into basketball, and what was it?
Well, I went to a small NAIA school that obviously Lindenwood used to play, Culver Stockton, you know, back in the Heart of America days in the NAIA. And I was one of those guys. I was such a good athlete that I got that $1,000 scholarship at a $14,000 a year school. And I played some baseball and then decided to walk on the basketball team. And there was about 14 guys, and I don't even want to say what year this was. Let's just say it was a long time ago. There was about 14 guys that tried out one year, and 2 of us made it. Got a little bit of playing time that year as a walk-on, and at the end of the season, the head coach at that time, Rod Walton, he set me down. He said, "I think you've got a future in coaching if that's what you want to do." And he said, "I don't think your ability and athleticism will allow you to go on to the next level in the NBA. You might want to think about being a coach." So, you know, I thought about it for, 15, 20 minutes. And I immediately, told him, I said, let's do this. And, Coach Walton really gave me my first opportunity at the collegiate level to coach. But I had no desire to want to be a college coach. I knew that I wanted to impact young people. So high school was where it was going to be.
And, me, my 5'11", and my, 6
You do a great job on the court for us, Andrew.
I wasn't ending up in the NBA either, so I know the feeling that you were getting. But talk to me about, so was your first job at Culver Stockton then, or was it at a high school level?
Well, I was a student assistant at Culver Stockton College for, I was I guess I was on the 5 or 6 year plan, as a student. But once I finally realized I've got to get this degree and I've got to start making some money to pay off these bills, I went to a small school outside of Hannibal, Missouri, Mark Twain High School. And my first job at Mark Twain High School, I was the junior high football coach in the fall, assistant varsity football coach. In the winter, I was the junior high 7th and 8th grade boys basketball coach, assistant varsity basketball coach, and I was the head golf coach in the spring. And I taught all the PE classes, taught a health class, even drove a school bus. So that was my first job. I did that for 3 years right out of college.
You're a jack of all trades.
Well,
you seriously are.
I tell you what, and I remember because I was so excited. I was coaching all these sports. I was having a big impact with all these young people, and I thought I was rich. I was making $18,200 my first year. That was my salary my first year out of college.
Nice.
Yeah,
very good.
$18,000.
So then you went to SLU eventually. You finally got to SLU. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I spent 3 years at Mark Twain and decided I wanted to be a head coach at the varsity level. So I transitioned to Silex, Missouri, which is just up north of Troy, Missouri, and spent 8 years there. I was athletic director, coached softball, girls basketball, cross country, lunchroom supervisor, did everything. And I really enjoyed the time. I had no desire to go to college. I thought I'd arrived. I had some young women that made me look smart. We went to some state championship games, won some titles, sent girls to college. I was really having a ball, living in a 2-bedroom house, $250 a month on 180 acres. So I thought I'd arrived there. And just out of the blue one day, and this had been about 2001, the office runner at Silex come and said, "Coach, you've got a phone call. You need to take it real quick." So I left my 6 students in the gym. I was a PE teacher. And went down, and it was St. Louis University calling with an offer to be an assistant. So I was leaving. Obviously, I took it. I was leaving one of the smallest high schools in the state of Missouri to go be an assistant at a Division I program. Wow. And at that time, SLU was in Conference USA, so we were playing against Cincinnati, Memphis, Houston, TCU, teams such as that. And that was quite a big transition for me.
And I know you had a lot of luxuries that you got when you were at the basketball coach at SLU. I'm sure you had a company car, and I'm sure you had a lot of other pretty nice assets, correct? If I'm right on that?
Yeah, they offered me the job. They gave me 2 days to think about it. Obviously, I consulted with the wife. I had 2 young daughters at the time, and I didn't know what I was getting into, but I said, hey, let's do it. So you get there, and yeah, you get a company car. So I had a dealer, here in St. Louis that I would go to the dealership, and he told me, you just go out and pick out a car, and whichever one you want off the lot, and you bring it in, we'll take the stickers off of it, and we'll clean it up and dress it up for you. You drive it for 5,000 miles, and bring it in, and we'll get you another one. And
a brand new one.
Yeah, didn't have to pay insurance. I didn't have to do any of that. We had a Nike clothing allowance, and there was a lot of perks to that. But with a lot of perks, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I remember my first year, back at that time in Division I, you started practice October 15th, like we do now in Division II. And when we started practice October 15th, we actually that first year made the WNIT, and we played up at Iowa City, played the University of Iowa in the first round of the WNIT, and that would have been the 3rd week of March. So from October 15th till the 3rd week of March, I had 1 day off, and that was Christmas Day. And it hit me right, it hit me really quick just what that level's about.
And then with all of those things happening, like everything just great, you had everything going, everything here, you got a car, you had this, you had that. What made you want to give all that up and come to Lindenwood?
Because at that level, it is so much about winning. And I'm one of the biggest competitors you'll ever meet. You see me in practice. It takes a lot to make me happy. But I think there's a certain way where you teach people how to compete. There's a right way to teach people how to compete, and I think you can still pour into young people's lives. And at that point, through the 8 years at St. Louis, and I worked for 2 great people. Jill Pizzotti gave me the opportunity. When she was released, Shimmy Gray Miller, who's now down at Texas Tech, asked me to stay. And I had 2 great people I was working for, but the time it takes and the demands that there were, I didn't get a lot of time with my family. I spent 8 years over Thanksgiving. We're coming up on Thanksgiving this Thursday. I was in Puerto Rico, I was in Seattle, I was in New York, I was in all these different places. And that sounds fun, but I'm a family man first. And it's tough when, back in the day when you have VCRs, we got DVDs now, but back in the day you had VCRs, you push pause. At noon on Thanksgiving, you call home, and people are talking about how great the turkey is and the stuffing. You kind of miss that, because I'm a family guy. So I wanted to give all that up because I wanted to get back into pouring into young people's lives. I wanted to get back to being a family man and taking care of my family.
And how do you feel that you've been impacting your girls' lives on this Lindenwood team today? And in previous years when you've been coaching, how do you feel like you have been truly accomplishing that impact that you want to make on their lives?
I know what my desire is. I know that I've got a few young people. I just had one the other day. I was 2 weeks ago. I was on the phone for a half hour giving a reference call for one of our former players, and she texted me 3 days ago and said she got the job, and she thanked me, and she's in Monterey, California. She's right next to Pebble Beach. And that's the success stories I love. We've got a present player on our team right now who went through a day-long interview with a local company, and she's going to get an internship. She got the internship, and she's going to do well in this internship to the point where once she's completed the internship, she's probably going to start out at about $85,000. So, pouring into these kids' lives is I think I'm doing a great job. Now, you can talk to some of these other girls, and they might say, I don't know if you're doing a great job or not. But that's what it's about. It's about putting these young people in a position to find success.
And then finally, Coach, just very quickly, do you have any regrets going into the coaching world?
Absolutely not. I believe that this was what I was destined to do. A lot of thought and prayer. I'm a faithful man. A lot of thought and prayer goes into this, and I wouldn't want to do it any other way. I believe that my path has been put in place, in front of me for a reason, and my job's to take advantage of that and do everything I can to help other people. We talk about it all the time in our program, where we talk a lot about servant leadership, and we feel that if you're going to be a quality human being, you've got to learn to serve others, and that's hard to do in this day and age. You young people are being inundated with this social media, and everything that's going on around you in the world. When I was in college, I knew what was going on with my 15 buddies and maybe a few of the other friends we had there at Culver up on the hill. Now you guys have contact with everybody around the world. You're comparing yourself to everything that's going on around the world. And, that can be quite inundating. But, if we can learn to serve people and continue that focus, I'm happy with that.
Well, great, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Lion Pride Sports. I can't thank you enough for coming on, telling us your story about the coaching world.
Thank you, Andrew, for everything you do.
Thank you. That's it for this edition of Lion Pride Sports. Thank you for joining us.